Greetings and welcome to this edition of the Nexus. Today I'm going to talk about a subject that I've discussed with some folks, friends, and offhandedly online and stuff. That is the subject of antinatalism. What is antinatalism? Antinatalism is the philosophy that procreation constitutes harm, and it is controversial in some respects, but it has a history. I'll be concentrating specifically on philanthropic antinatalism, which, judging from what I see, is the predominant strain. That is, not procreating is an altruistic act and beneficial to others. First of all, I'd like to detail some history of the philosophy itself in its modern incarnation. I think the person that put it on the map first was Arthur Schopenhauer, and I'll briefly read an excerpt from his work on the subject. He says, "If children were brought into the world by an act of pure reason alone, would the human race continue to exist? Would not a man rather have so much sympathy with the coming generation as to spare it the burden of existence, or at any rate, not take it upon himself to impose that burden in cold blood?" I think that's pretty explicit, and it predates Arthur Schopenhauer. I think there's always been a thread of antinatalist philosophy throughout the history of Western culture, and it seems to manifest largely in religious ideas. Several things come to mind. The Cathars in medieval France, otherwise known as the Albigensians in the 13th century, before they were wiped out by the Crusades of the Catholic Church, had a religious system that included the idea that you would be perfect if you, among other things, refrained from sex and procreation. And the reason they did this was they believed that Satan, the devil, was trying to drag souls, essentially, into this material realm and chain them here in matter. It's a very similar philosophy to earlier ideas which are associated with the Gnostic Christians, which had similar ideas about procreation, trapping the sparks of light here in the matter and preventing them from ascending to God the Father. So you have that, and I think there was some contention. I believe that sometime, from what I understand, there was some contention between the Orthodox, who came to understand that this might not be so great for their religion in terms of propagating it. And you see in some of the books by Paul, or attributed to him, that there was an argument that those who condemned marriage, which of course is where you could morally have sex in the religion, were wrong. And I think he was targeting some of the heretics in that passage. Although one could make an argument too that in early Christianity and the Orthodox tradition, there's also an idea pointing to not procreating. Eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven, possibly that passage attributed to Jesus, and Paul's invading the idea that it would be good for people to be like him, which is he was celibate and hence would not have children. Earlier than that, though, I think the passage that I want to read next comes from the Old Testament, and this is the clearest evidence that the idea has existed far back. And you see this in Ecclesiastes, where the author says, "So I have praised the dead that are already dead more than the living are yet alive, but better than both of them. is he who has not yet been, who has not seen evil work that is done under the sun. And that's Ecclesiastes 1 verses 2 through 4. It's a really, in my opinion, one of the better books in the Old Testament and possibly the Bible itself. It's very real, it's gritty, and it has a lot of realism and pessimism. The author definitely is not keen on this life. All is vanity, all is vanity. He says this over and over again, and seems to be weary of existence. So yeah, I recommend that, reading that. There are some misconceptions about antinatalists, and certainly I would like to take them on. One is that we hate children. We do not hate existent children. In fact, part of the reason why we have the philosophy is we pity and we feel a great sympathy for children in this world, because right now the future looks very bleak, and there is much pain to go through, probably for many of them, and we would spare them that pain. We would spare future children, possible children, the pain of bringing them here. And I think that we don't really condemn, at least I don't condemn, people who have children. I think that it's very strong in our genetic makeup, and it's only the philosophy has only had a recent incarnation, whereas they're actually organized groups and websites and what have you devoted to antinatalist philosophy. So people don't know about it, and people, we have such a pronatal culture, and much of it for all the wrong reasons, that many people don't know any other way. I mean, it's just assumed that you're going to have children, and people, I don't think, give a lot of thought to it, and I'll get into that a little bit. And I think that the other one is we are depressed, and certainly the philosophy itself goes hand in hand a lot of times with pessimism. But you don't have to be depressed to have the antinatalist philosophy. It's not a mandated thing. You could be a very happy person and think that logically not procreating is a good idea. So those are some of the things that are misconceptions about it. I've always wondered, sort of, there's nothing in religion, the major religions of the world, that forbid the adoption of not having children as a philosophy. I sometimes wonder about why people who are, say, evangelicals, would have children in the first place, since that entails that they must confront the idea that whether or not there is a God, and according to their system of belief, if you choose wrongly, you will go to hell. And so I often wonder why you would even have children in that context, because they could make the wrong decision. Why not have them, and that way you would spare them from making the wrong decision. So those are some of the things that I was thinking about. The issues surrounding it are, of course, prevention of suffering. We would spare future generations suffering, and many people would counter by saying, oh, there's great beauty and joy in life. Yes, but look at the newspaper. Go online. Look at the news. We are lucky. If you're watching this, you're fortunate. Your fate has rolled the dice in your favor being born. You were born into an environment in which there's not war and starvation, and even here, you could be born and end up a homeless person being mugged in the middle of the night and stabbed to death. I mean, that's a perfectly that's a possible thing to happen in North America. So that dovetails into one of the things that we that hold this view and weigh heavily against, and that is Pollyannism, the over-optimism. that so many people have in this society. And that's not to say that there is not a place for, positive thinking. Yes, but there's too much of it, and it's used very badly. We don't confront in our society as a whole the real looming negativity in the world, the real issues that are threatening us. We face global problems that are getting even more, they're looming ever larger, ecological problems, economic downturns in the world that bode ill for everyone. We are in a constant state of war, and we face, I believe, a system which is incredibly, every day growing more and more powerful and totalitarian in its nature. And you want to bring a child into this world and have them grow up under these circumstances. I think that a better view would be that the earth is a cradle. Let's clean the cradle up before we bring a child into it. And I think that we need to stop right now, and everyone, this would be my thought, to stop procreating and to get a handle globally on our situation. Now, some would say that's just out there. That's wishful thinking, and it'll never happen. People talk about peace all the time, and man, that's really wishful thinking, in my opinion. So I don't think mine is. It's an action that everyone can take. Certainly, use birth control or refrain from sex. These are things that one can take action on, vasectomy, whatever. So, doing that, making the earth better, way better than it is now, and addressing multiple issues, in my opinion, is necessary. I think that before I would bring a child into this world, that's for sure. I don't want to impose my philosophy on others. That's another sort of misconception. But I will, through persuasion, try to urge people to think about it and to perhaps consider adopting it as a means of as a way forward. Not the solution, but a part of the solution that we can adopt in this world. Certainly, overpopulation can be debated, but less humans would be better for some species, for sure. Other than that, there are other issues too. Just to wrap this up, I can go on and on about this, and I may make more videos about it, but there are larger questions of meaning too. When a child is born, it's not a toaster, it's not a commodity, and I know there's a lot of industries that are built around childbirth, selling diapers, maternity clothing, cribs, and a whole 9 yards, and they view them as nothing more than commodities, and that's really tragic. That spills over into many parents' views of their children, that they think they're having a toaster, and it's not a toaster. It's a living, sentient human being. And I think that attitude is very bad, and people should think about having children before they do it, at the very least, and look around them and think about the whole situation that the child would be born into. I think a meditation on this might persuade many people to say, no, I won't do it. And so these are the things that I would like people to consider. If you want to comment, please do, even if you disagree. I'm just putting this idea out there and exploring the philosophy a little bit for people that are unfamiliar with it. So until next time, this is Moonhand from the Nexus, and I hope this video finds you well. Peace.